Well, hello everybody. How are you today? I hope that you've had a very good day as I have. Thank you for tuning back in to me, and I want to welcome you to another edition of my little show, which I'm about to come up with a name for very soon. So stay tuned. Nevertheless, I'm very glad to have you with me today, and thank you for dropping by. And this being the month of December, I felt that it was important and pretty necessary to talk about what I'm gonna talk about on this video, because if you know, if you pay attention, you see how oftentimes things begin to change. Seem like as we're approaching the end of the year, I mean, it's like so many things happen. People tend to transition. They pass on, and then you see a lot of babies being born as well sometimes. Also, you may notice things happening. Certain tragedies, or it may be a bunch of other things. Well, not all bad. There can be good things as well. Like some people retire from their jobs, or some people may end up finding new jobs. They'll resign from one and go to another. Also, some people start getting geared up to return to school for the spring semester, especially like if they're in college and what have you. Some of them may be signing up for the first time, going back to school, and that's a good thing. But at any rate, there are all sorts of things that take place what seems like at the end of the year. And I would call those different transitions and things a change in seasons in those people's lives. Because things may have always been one way for a long time, but now there's a shifting taking place, and they have to make preparations in order for this to be a smooth transition for them. And I've experienced transitions in my life as well at this time of the year, by the way, because I never forget, back in 2005, I got fired from my job in a law firm. I had worked in law firms for coming up on 3 years, and I had just left the first law firm I worked at for over 2.5 years and went to another firm, worked there for a little over a month, and then they let me go in December. At Christmas time, the holiday season is a terrible time for anybody to lose their job. I can tell you, I've been there. And so many other things have happened in my life and in the lives of so many other people I know at the end of the year. But I considered that the end of that particular season. And I'm sure many of you out there have experienced the same. As you've gone through life, you've had seasons to come and go. And so that's what I want to talk about tonight. Seasons change. And what better time to talk about it than at the end of this year? Because we're at the end of autumn, and we're getting ready to cross over into winter, which begins December 21st. The season will be changing. So, again, seasons change. In the book of Ecclesiastes, it says that to everything there is a season and a purpose for everything under heaven. I would also like to add that there is a time in everyone's life when they experience and enjoy their season of glory, meaning that there is an appointed time on their journey through this era of existence when they are on top of their game and they are at their very best. However, as the sun rises in the east in the morning and sets in the west in the evening, so it is with each one of us in our lives. When a baby is born, the sun is rising in his own little world. And when a person, whether they're elderly or not, transitions from this life and moves on to the next realm of their existence, the sun sets on their world. Each individual who is alive today on this planet is living in his or her own little world, which, by the way, is precisely what we make of it. And our very life, which can also be referred to as our golden moment, should be lived to the fullest and enjoyed beyond measure, because we are only here for a moment. And that moment is indeed our season. Now, as we go through life and we experience many ups and downs and ebbs and flows and ins and outs and good and bad and what have you, we'll have all types of emotions. We'll experience a little happiness here, a little sadness here, a little joy here and gladness, and then a little frustration and disappointment there. But it all works together for our good. And we learn valuable lessons as we go through these various seasons in our lives. Some seasons are a little more difficult than others. Sometimes we can find ourselves in what seems like is a long season. I'm talking about, it seems like it just goes on and on and on forever. No end in sight. Then other times, we may experience a season in our life that is relatively short. And we wish that we could extend it a little further, but unfortunately we can't. So we just have to deal with it as it is. How to know when your season is over? Staying in a relationship, on a job, in a church, in a neighborhood, or even in a city or state, past your season for being there will only cause you to feel more miserable and experience more depression. In fact, the longer you wait to leave, the more frustrated you will become. We must realize that there is an appointed time for all that we set out to do in life, and that our season for doing it will indeed come to an end. But one thing's for sure, and that is, just because something in our life is about to end, doesn't mean that something new won't begin. Because truth is, the end of a thing usually brings about a new beginning. That is typically the case in every aspect of our lives. And I'm sure that many of you have had times in your life when you couldn't understand why a thing had to end and how it ended the way it did, why it ended the way it did. But as I've gotten older, I have learned that things end when they're supposed to, and things end how they're supposed to. And we may not always understand it at the very beginning, but as time goes on and as we begin to increase our knowledge of different things and become more aware of certain situations and different circumstances that we encounter in life, it becomes more apparent to us that there's a reason behind it, and it makes us feel better knowing that whatever that reason was, for whatever it was that happened to happen, regardless of what the situation was, it all worked out for our good. And that's the main thing. We don't want to walk around feeling gloomy and, with our head hung down and just feeling bad and, just totally distraught, because there is so much more for us out there, And matter of fact, little do we know that whatever it is we're looking for could very well be looking for us. So I think that's a good thing for everybody to remember as well. How do you know when your season is up? Be it with a person, in a place, or doing a particular thing. There are 3 ways to tell when your time is up. Number 1, what you're doing is becoming more physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually draining. In other words, the joy you once had in doing it is no longer there. And it's wreaking havoc on your mind, your body, and your spirit. Basically, it's almost like you're up the creek without a paddle, in a sense. Whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's working on a job, and you may have been on that job a long time, or you may have been involved in a relationship for years, in a marriage or what have you, been a part of an organization for umpteen years. You have built up such a rapport there, you may be the president or vice president or director or general manager, whatever. You have status and you have influence and everything. But then suddenly you wake up one morning and you realize that that's really not who you are. And you have worn out you don't want to wear out your welcome. You've overstayed your welcome, in other words. And I don't believe in wearing out my welcome in a place. I don't know about you, but you never want to stay somewhere longer than you're needed, because it's like people will let you know in so many words, well, they won't tell you, but they'll show you. Like the saying goes, I can show you better than I can tell you. They'll show you that, they have had about enough of you. Which leads me to number 2. The atmosphere has become rather uncomfortable, and the people by whom you are surrounded, who are also affiliated with the place, have become difficult to get along with. They're toxic, intolerable, and are quite possibly ready for you to head toward the door. They are ready for you to find the nearest exit. And I have been in situations where that was precisely what I needed to do look for the nearest exit, because sometimes you know people can get too comfortable in a place or around certain folk, but in their heart of hearts they know that they were called to do something bigger and better. They know that there is more for them than where they are and what they're doing. But the people around them, they can't see that, and therefore they don't share in their vision. But sometimes these same folk will start, looking at you sideways, because though they don't know the calling that's on your life, and that you are destined for greatness, they can sense oftentimes that you're different. And because you're different, you stand out from the crowd. And they know that, well, they can feel it in themselves that you have the potential to go above and beyond where they are. Meanwhile, they'll be stuck where they are for probably the rest of their lives. And they get mad at you too for that. They want to come and, start an argument, or they want to cause a riff-raff, some type of disagreement or whatever. Run and snitch on you to the supervisor and cause them to write you up, and I mean, just a little pet. It's just pettiness. That's all it is. And I've been there. So it's ridiculous, to say the least. Number 3, you no longer see where your being there in that place, in that relationship, or doing whatever it is you're doing is making an impact. No matter what you do at this point, it never seems like it's good enough. Your efforts often go unnoticed and unrewarded, leaving you feeling as if it's a complete waste of time. These are just some of the ways to know when your season is over and it's time to let it go and move on. Now, sometimes people have trouble moving forward. They find it extremely difficult to let go of the past, whatever it is, and press forward to something better, because they feel like that's what God wanted them to go through for the remainder of time that they have on this earth. They're supposed to be suffering, and they're supposed to be agonizing over this situation, that situation. They're supposed to be dogged out, mistreated, and abused and neglected and ran over by folk, and made fun of, laughed at, talked about. They feel like that's their lot in life. A lot of folk do. A lot of people suffer from low self-esteem, and they have little to no confidence whatsoever, and that causes them to put up with certain things way longer than they should. But once they realize that they deserve better, then they begin to feel in a sense of rejuvenation in their spirit, and they start changing their outlook on life, and they begin to feel better about themselves. They feel a sense of empowerment stirring within, to the point where they start picking themselves up, and they dust their feet off and get ready to come out from among them, those no good jokers, because that's what they are, and leave that place, get out of that toxic relationship, maybe a bad marriage, or just a relationship that you're in, And sometimes, people been in a relationship so long, they find it very difficult to leave, because they feel like they'll never find anybody better. But there is someone better out there for you. And you may be in the right place at the right time when you meet them. And you'll know them too when you do. And you'll click instantly. See, that's the thing. Because sometimes we try to force stuff to work. We try to force relationships to last and to stay together. And we try to force these co-workers of ours to love us and accept us for who we are and everything. But we can't. If something has to be forced to work, it's not for you, regardless of what it is. A personal philosophy of mine, which dropped in my spirit in August of 2014, a time which brought about the ending of a season in my life. I had been a choir member, singing in the choir in church for coming up on 2 decades, and at the end of the summer of 2014, that was it. I'd had it. And I had to walk away from it. And I hated to because I loved singing. I loved the music, and I especially loved the camaraderie that I experienced with my fellow choir members, the musicians. It was incredible, but my season was up. And circumstances played out in a way that forced me to walk away from it. So I had no other choice. And that year also brought about the ending of my mother's season as an employee at our local hospital, because the hospital went out of business that year, and she had been working there ever since I was a baby. She had been there for coming up on 34 years. So, a long time. So, she just had to go head on and take retirement as a result of that. So, my personal philosophy is, when a season in your life has ran its course, there is no need to try to stretch it out any further. Because when you try to stretch a season out further than it was meant to go, you're doing more harm to yourself and more damage to whatever it is that's in your vicinity than you could ever imagine. Not only are you holding up progress for yourself, but you're also holding up progress for others, the people around you. You're becoming a stumbling block. You're a hindrance, and nobody wants to be in a predicament like that. Have you experienced any seasons coming to an end in your life, or seasons changing? I'm sure many of you have, especially if you're older than 10. And so, if you haven't yet, then as the saying goes, keep on living, because you will. Whether it be people transitioning in your life, loved ones, parents, grandparents, spouses, siblings, other relatives, friends, neighbors, co-workers. People come and people go. That's the way life is. That's how the world is. We just have to make the best of the situation at hand, do the best we can in the season that we're in, and keep on keeping on. So those are my thoughts on today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your love and your support and your faithfulness and viewership. It is very much appreciated. Be sure to tune in next time when I have something else to discuss, okay? And I am Taryn Jerome Harris. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.